Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Lena rushed to her job interview, her heart pounding. In one hand, she held a crumpled resume, in the other, a bag of food. Her hair was hastily tied back, and her quick steps showed just how important this day was. She decided to take a shortcut through a narrow alley. The wet papers on the ground made it slippery, and then, in the blink of an eye, everything went wrong. She slipped, the bag flew out of her hand, rice and chicken scattered in the air, and she hit the ground. "Oh great," Lena muttered, sitting there, staring at her spilled lunch as if she had lost something far more valuable than food. "Are you hurt?" The voice came from where she least expected, from behind a stack of boxes in the corner of the alley. A man appeared, clearly homeless, with messy hair, an unshaven face, and worn-out clothes. But something about him was different. His eyes, there was a calm, sharp look in them that didn't match his rough appearance. "I think I'm okay," Lena answered, picking up what was left of her meal. He stepped closer and picked up the fallen container, handing it to her with a slight smile. "There's still a little left." Lena hesitated before taking it from him. "Do you live here?" The man glanced around before replying. "For now, yes, but it's temporary. I'm between two paths between who I was and who I will be." Lena stared at him, surprised. What kind of homeless man talked like that? That's when she noticed the wound on his foot, a nasty cut, still bleeding. "You're hurt. It's nothing. I'm used to it." Without thinking, Lena opened her backpack. She pulled out a tissue, a small bottle of alcohol, and some tape. "This will sting a little," she warned. "I've had worse," he said, trying to sound tough, but his face twisted the moment the alcohol touched his skin. She quickly finished the bandage and was about to stand up when her stomach growled loudly. "Perfect," she grumbled. "Lost my lunch, running late, and now I'm being helped by someone worse off than me. I have a bag of bread. Want some?" She looked at him in surprise, then at the bag he was holding out, and let out a resigned sigh. "Only if there's butter," he chuckled, and so did she. A few minutes later, they sat on the curb, sharing the bread like old friends. Lena glanced at her watch and realized she was already too late. No point in rushing anymore. The interview she had wanted so badly was gone. Well, that's it. No job, no lunch. And now I'm wasting time with a mysterious man who has strangely beautiful eyes. "You think my eyes are beautiful?" Lena blushed and looked away. "What's your name?" she asked, changing the subject. "Miles. And yours?" "Lena." He studied her for a moment, as if memorizing her face. "So, you really live on the streets?" "Technically, yes, but my roof is the sky. That must be hard." Miles didn't answer. He just sat in silence. Lena stood up, dusted off her clothes, and picked up her resume. "Good luck, Miles." "You too, Lena." She walked away, but she didn't forget him. In the days that followed, Lena kept passing through that alley, always in a hurry, always chasing new opportunities. The interviews became a cycle of empty promises. But Miles, he was always there, in the same spot, with the same calm and observant gaze. Sometimes they exchanged greetings, other times short conversations. Once, he complimented her courage for standing up to a rude street vendor. Slowly, his presence became a small but steady part of her chaotic days. Then, on a freezing afternoon, Lena walked through the alley again. She had just left another disappointing interview, and she found Miles different. He was shivering. The bandage she had put on was still there, but now dirty and barely holding. The wound had worsened. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, and his arms wrapped around himself, as if trying to hold on to what little warmth was left. Lena walked closer. "You still have that bandage?" she asked, concerned. "It's still holding," he replied, forcing a weak smile. She knelt down to check. The wound was infected, and he could barely hide his shaking. Lena looked around, thinking. She knew it might not be the safest choice, but then she thought about the small back room in her apartment, tiny, simple, but it had a bed, a blanket, and a heater that worked. "I have a place," she whispered. Miles looked at her with a mix of surprise and caution. "It's nothing fancy, just a little room, but it's better than the cold ground. You can stay for the night, just tonight, Lena." "Just tonight," she repeated firmly. He hesitated, but he was too weak to refuse. He just nodded. She reached out her hand. He took it. On the way, Lena watched him. Even with a limp, Miles carried himself upright, as if holding on to a dignity no one else could see. He didn't look away. He didn't seem ashamed, and that intrigued her even more. When they arrived, she opened the door to her small apartment. "Welcome to my castle." Ignore the mess and the smell of disinfectant. Miles stepped inside slowly. He stopped in front of a framed photo of a smiling older woman standing next to Lena. "Your mother?" "My grandmother. She's in the hospital this week. I take care of her." He touched the glass carefully, murmured something. Lena couldn't catch. "What did you say?" "Nothing, just. She reminds me of someone I once knew." Lena felt a chill run down her spine, but she decided not to push. She led Miles to the small back room. "This is the bedroom. Bathroom's at the end of the hall. Towels are in the cabinet. And watch out for the heater. Don't get too comfortable, okay? It's just for tonight." "Of course, just for tonight." Miles stood there, taking in the space with quiet respect. That night, neither of them slept well, one because he felt further than ever from his own past, the other because she felt closer than ever to something she couldn't yet explain. Let's play a little game with the people who only read the comments. Type pizza in the comments, only those who read this far will get it. Now, let's continue the story. The next morning started with the relentless sound of the alarm clock. Lena slowly opened her eyes, and for a moment, she thought she had dreamed it all. But as soon as she heard the sound of the faucet running in the bathroom, she remembered Miles was still there. She got up, tied her hair into a messy bun, and walked to the kitchen. She found a clean plate on the drying rack and a pot on the stove. "You cooked?" she asked, surprised, seeing Miles sitting at the table with a cup of coffee in his hands. "I tried. It's more of an experiment than a meal. I promised nothing exploded." Lena grabbed a spoon and tasted the rice. She made a face. "This tastes like porridge missing salt." "I'm practicing," he said with a half smile. She laughed. So did he. For the first time since he'd entered her home, Lena saw him relax. Even so, something about him still didn't quite fit the way he held the cup, the way he observed the space. He wasn't just some ordinary guy. "You look more put together today." "Sleeping under a roof works wonders," he replied without looking at her. Lena nodded, poured herself some coffee, and sat across from him. "I have to leave soon, 2 deliveries, and a job interview today. Can I stay another day?" She thought for a second. Their deal was for just one night, but he didn't seem like trouble. "All right, but no snooping through my stuff and no more cooking experiments. I promise no more salty porridge." As Lena rushed out, Miles settled onto the living room couch with a book he found on the shelf, Economics for Dummies. He smirked, flipped it open halfway through, and started reading, turning the pages with an unsettling familiarity for someone homeless. Later that morning, he washed the dishes, straightened the kitchen towels, and cleaned the bathroom mirror, taking his time as if he'd done it 100 times before. That evening, when Lena returned, she found the apartment quiet and spotless. "You cleaned? Seemed fair since I'm taking up space. Are you trying to win me over with a broom and soap? If it works, I can mop the floor tomorrow too." Lena laughed. She sank onto the couch, exhausted. "My day was a mess. Got the deliveries done, but the interview a disaster. You'll get there. You just need the right opportunity." She looked at him. The way he said it, it wasn't just encouragement, it was like he knew what he was talking about. "You sound like someone who's had every opportunity in the world." "Maybe I wasted a few," he said, a distant look in his eyes. The next day, while Lena was at work, Miles reorganized the bookshelf and fixed the flickering light on the balcony. He used a makeshift screwdriver, a bent spoon, and a rusty pair of pliers. When she got home, she noticed the light was working. "You messed with the lamp? It was bothering me." "You're good with tools." "I was curious as a kid, like taking things apart. Didn't always know how to put them back together." Lena crossed her arms, suspicious. "You're nothing like I imagined." "And what did you imagine?" "A lost guy wandering around, barely able to write his own name." "You've read too much and lived too little." She laughed. "Arrogant too." "A little, sometimes." They laughed together. Their unlikely arrangement was starting to feel normal, but the peace didn't last long. The next afternoon, a loud knock on the door shattered the silence. Lena opened the door. It was the building manager, Mr. Carter, stern as always. "Good afternoon, Miss Lena. Can we talk?" "Of course. Is there a problem?" "We've had reports of a strange man hanging around the building, messy hair, worn-out clothes. Some residents are concerned." Lena froze. Miles appeared behind her in the hallway, holding a dish towel. "Is something wrong?" The manager eyed him with suspicion. Is this the man in question? Lena opened her mouth, but Miles spoke first. Sorry if I caused any concern. I'm Lena's cousin. I came from out of town, and I'm staying here for a few days until I find a place. Cousin? Carter raised an eyebrow. Miles stepped forward and offered his hand. Miles, nice to meet you. The manager shook his hand reluctantly. Just be careful. The residents are sensitive about strangers, and the building rules require long-term visitors to be registered. We'll take care of it, Lena said, trying to sound firm. Carter nodded and left. When she closed the door, she turned to Miles. Cousin? It worked, didn't it? She laughed, shaking her head. You're too good at improvising. Old habit. Habit from what? Survival, he said, looking toward the window with that same calm expression. That night, Lena kept thinking about what had happened. How could someone who claimed to have nothing be so quick, articulate, and observant? Miles slept quietly in the small guest room, discreet, but something about him screamed the opposite of what he pretended to be. She walked over to the bookshelf and looked at the books he had arranged. One had a folded page at number 47. She opened it. There was a note written with her own pen. You are better than you think. You just need the world to see it. Lena smiled, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe she wasn't so alone anymore. Lena woke up to the smell of fresh coffee coming from the kitchen. It was early, and the sky was still painted in shades of orange. She stretched slowly, for a moment forgetting she had someone else living with her. Walking into the kitchen, she saw him from behind, moving skillfully with the coffee maker. She was sure had been broken for months. You fixed that? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Miles turned around with a small smile. It just had some loose wires, nothing serious. And you know about electricity too? A little bit of everything, childhood curiosity. Lena sat at the table, skeptical. One of these days, you're going to build a robot in here. Only if it can cook better than me. She laughed, but the suspicion didn't fade. Every day, Miles revealed something new, a skill, a smart remark, an overly sharp observation. He definitely didn't seem like a man with no resources. Later, while getting ready for another job interview, she walked into the room and stopped when she saw her laptop open. Miles was typing something and quickly stood up when he saw her at the door. I was just checking it out. The system was slow. I thought I could help. You opened my computer? It was instinct. I saw it open, took a look. I didn't touch anything important. Lena walked over to the desk and looked at the screen. It was a job recruitment site. There was a new resume attached, updated with corrections she hadn't made. You changed my resume? I just fixed the formatting, added some tweaks. Your information was fine, but the layout wasn't great. You had no right to do that. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help. Without asking me first? Miles lowered his eyes. It was an impulse. You're too good to keep being overlooked, and that resume didn't even show half of that. Lena took a deep breath, trying to calm her frustration and surprise. Just, next time, ask first, all right? I promise. By the end of the afternoon, Lena got an email from a tech company inviting her for an interview the next day. The email mentioned the updated resume. She looked at her phone, thoughtful. Miles was still in the small guest room. She knocked on the door. You said my resume? He hesitated. Yes, without telling me. I knew you wouldn't let me. And what makes you think you had the right? Because I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. Lena didn't answer right away. Part of her wanted to be mad. Another part felt something else. Just don't do it again. I don't like surprises. Understood. The next morning, Lena was getting ready for the interview when she noticed Miles standing on the balcony, watching the sky. Aren't you going to wish me luck? You don't need it, but you'll have it anyway, he said, smiling. If I get this job, I might not need an extra guest in the back room anymore. That's fair. And if I don't get it, you will. She gave her hair one last adjustment and walked out the door. Miles stood there for a few more minutes. Then he went back to the small room, carefully closed the door, and took out an old folded newspaper from the bottom of his backpack. On the front page was a photo of a man himself, but looking more polished, a dark suit, a reserved smile, arms crossed in front of a sign that read Nexus Technologies. The headline read, CEO missing for 8 months. Where is Miles Renard? Miles ran his finger over his own face. Then, without a second thought, he tore the page into small pieces and threw them in the trash. As Lena was returning from her interview, her phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. Hello, Miss Lena. This is Clara from Innovate. We reached out yesterday by email. Can you come in to speak with the board tomorrow? Lena stopped on the sidewalk. Of course. Thank you. See you tomorrow. She hung up, barely believing it. She was smiling to herself as she crossed the same street as always, near the alley where everything had started. Then, as she passed a newsstand, she stopped. A front page dated months ago featured a story about a missing businessman. The face she knew it, or thought she did. She stepped closer, read the caption. Miles Renard, founder and CEO of Nexus Technologies, has not been seen since the mysterious accident that removed him from his position. Lena froze. It was him, the same facial structure, the same eyes, the same name, Miles. But it couldn't be. She went home in silence. When she walked in, everything was in order. Miles was sitting at the table, reading a book, as if nothing had happened. "Hey," he said casually. "Hey." She went straight to her room, sat on the bed, the newspaper still in her bag. Her heart was racing. He had the same name, the same face, the same calm demeanor, but he lived in an alley. Lena's mind was spinning with questions, but she didn't know where to start, not yet. That night, they had dinner in silence. Miles commented on the weather, on a strange noise coming from the fridge. Lena pretended to listen, but her mind was elsewhere, on doubt, on the face from that newspaper, on the man now sleeping in the small room at the back of her house. She lay awake for a long time, staring at the dark ceiling, and before falling asleep, she whispered a single question. "Who are you really, Miles?" The alarm rang at 6:30. Lena got up, still trying to process what she had felt the night before. The image from the newspaper wouldn't leave her mind, the name, the face, the tone of the article. Everything pointed to the fact that Miles was not who he claimed to be, but she didn't have the courage to confront him, not yet. And at that moment, she had something more urgent to deal with, the interview with the Innovate board. Miles was in the kitchen when she came out of her room. "Coffee's ready, and there's cheese bread, not that I made it, but I went to the bakery early." "Thanks," Lena said, accepting the cup. She watched him as she drank her coffee. He seemed calm, normal, but now she saw things differently, the way he moved around the house, how he observed everything. He was too discreet, and at the same time, he seemed to know exactly what to do in every situation. "Heading out?" he asked. "I have that meeting at Innovate. Nervous?" "A little." "You'll do great." She nodded, then hesitated. "And you? Going out today?" Miles smiled. "Thought I'd walk around the neighborhood, just to stretch my legs, huh?" She finished her coffee and stood up. "See you later." "Good luck, Lena." As soon as she left, Miles walked to the window and waited. He counted to 40 in his head. Then he grabbed a backpack hidden in the small room, changed his shirt, put on a dark cap, and slipped out through the back of the building. The Nexus Technologies headquarters was just over an hour away. Miles avoided buses and the subway. He walked through the streets, changed routes twice, and entered a cafe near the company to observe the surroundings. He didn't want to be recognized, not yet. He had spent months in hiding, and everything pointed to the fact that Ethan had taken control of the company with ease. Miles needed to know what was happening before revealing himself. He waited until rush hour passed. Only then did he approach the main building. The ID badge he had kept since the accident was still in his backpack, but he knew it wouldn't work anymore. He entered through the side reception, using the service elevator. A former employee, now working in maintenance, recognized him. "Mr. Miles, just for today. I need to take a look at things. Can you help me?" "Of course. It's good to see you again." Miles walked through the hallways like a ghost. Most of the new employees had no idea who he was. When he reached the executive floor, he stood still in front of the glass door that once led to his office. Now, a new nameplate read, Ethan Bryce, Chief Executive Officer. Miles took a deep breath and stepped into the meeting room next door. Connecting an old laptop to the internal system, he typed in his old password. It worked. Reports started appearing, contracts, meetings, transactions. And there it was, the plan to sell part of Nexus to a shell company based overseas. Ethan was dismantling the company from the inside, slowly but systematically. Miles read every line carefully, committing the details to memory. He couldn't take anything not yet. He had to be careful. Meanwhile, Lena was finishing her interview. "Your resume looks great, Miss Lena," the manager said, "and the way you presented yourself really impressed us. If all goes well, we'll be in touch by the end of the week." She smiled, thanked him, and left. She felt lighter, yet somehow uneasy. She took the bus home, but got off 2 stops early. She walked to the newsstand where she had seen the newspaper. It was still there. She asked the vendor if there were any other editions about Miles Renard. "There are, hang on," he said, pulling out a stack of old newspapers. Lena quickly scanned the headlines. Billionaire businessman disappears after suspected helicopter crash. Nexus Technologies changes leadership after CEO goes missing. Theories about Miles Renard's whereabouts flood social media. She felt the ground shift beneath her. She walked home in silence. When she arrived, Miles was already there. He was sitting on the couch, his hair still damp, as if he had just taken a shower. "How was it? The interview?" "Yeah, good. I think it went well. That's great. And you? Had your little outing?" He nodded. Felt good to get some air. Lena forced a smile and went straight to her room. She closed the door, sat on the bed, and spread the newspapers out on the mattress. Her eyes landed on the front page photo, the same look, the same posture. It was him. Now she was sure. That night, they had dinner together. Lena tried to act normal, but something was different. Miles noticed. "Something wrong?" he asked. "No, just tired. You seem distant. Just thinking." He was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up. "If I'm in the way, I can leave. It's not that." She met his eyes. "Who are you, Miles?" He didn't answer. "I saw the newspapers. I figured it out." "Is it true?" Miles sighed, walked to the window, and looked out at the street. "Yes." "Then why are you here? Why are you hiding?" "Because I lost control of everything, and when I thought I had lost enough, I found you." Lena swallowed hard. "You're Miles Renard, the missing CEO?" "I was, but after the accident, I didn't want to come back not like that. They told me the company was fine, that Ethan would take care of everything. I believed them, and by the time I realized they were lying, it was too late." "Why didn't you go to the police or the press?" "Because it would destroy me not physically, but everything I built would turn to dust. And I don't do well with dust." Lena didn't know what to say. There was anger, yes, but there was also understanding. He wasn't just a liar, he was a man trying to escape himself. "So, what are you going to do?" Miles turned to her. "I don't know, but now, maybe I have a reason to go back." She felt her heart race, but she didn't respond. She just got up and went to her room. Miles stayed in the living room alone, looking at the photo of Lena's grandmother, thinking about how fate could be cruel and fair at the same time. The following week started off busy for Lena. While she was still waiting for a response from Innovate, she kept taking small jobs whenever she could. She worked as a waitress at events on weekends, delivered packages in her spare time, and sometimes typed resumes for neighbors for a little extra cash. On Friday morning, she received a message from a co-worker's number. "Party tonight. A tech company event, a big one. Are you in?" Lena didn't think twice. She replied, "Yes." She didn't know it yet, but that invitation would change everything. That night, Lena arrived at the event venue, a luxurious hotel with a mirrored facade and a lobby that sparkled like a grand ballroom. The decor was elegant, the kind of place she would never visit by choice. She was given a standard uniform and directed to the main hall. "Don't talk to guests unless necessary. And smile," the coordinator said hurriedly, handing out trays of glasses. Lena took a deep breath and stepped inside. The hall was enormous. Screens displayed animated charts. Corporate presentations were projected on the walls, and in one corner, an orchestra played softly. She walked among the guests, balancing a tray of champagne, trying to keep her posture steady. Then she saw something that made her stop. Miles, in a suit, clean-shaven, standing tall. He was talking to a group of well-dressed men, gesturing with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where he belonged. Lena felt her breath catch. For a moment, he didn't see her, or he pretended not to. She quickly stepped aside and moved into a hallway, her heart pounding. "Why is he here?" she thought. "How does no one recognize him? Or do they?" She looked again. Miles was laughing with an older executive, both holding glasses. He was wearing a name tag with a different name, Mason Adler. She closed her eyes for a moment. This was too real. In the back room used by event staff, Lena tried to calm herself. She took her phone out to send a message to a coworker, but just as the coordinator called her away, she left it on the counter. Minutes later, when she returned, the phone was gone. She searched everywhere, asked the other staff members nothing. She rushed out of the break room and started looking around the event. She tried to remember where she could have left it. She stopped near the entrance, watching the flow of people coming and going. That's when she saw Miles, or rather, Mason, slipping quietly through a side door. Something in his jacket pocket caught her eye, a metallic edge, like a phone. Lena didn't have time to confront him. He disappeared down the hallways. That night, she went home without her phone, without answers, and with a storm of questions swirling in her mind. Miles hadn't come back yet, and when he did, it was already past midnight. He entered quietly, without turning on the lights. He thought Lena was asleep, but she was sitting in the living room, waiting. "Where were you?" she asked, straight to the point. He paused for a second. "I went for a walk. At a 5-star hotel, wearing a suit and a fake name tag." Miles stayed calm. "I had to be there. Stealing a phone was part of the plan too?" "I didn't steal it." He pulled the phone from his pocket. "Her phone. I found it in the hall, near the buffet. I was going to leave it at the front desk, but I changed my mind." "Changed your mind about returning it, or about keeping up your lies?" He handed her the phone. "Here it is, battery full, nothing touched." "You were pretending to be someone else," she accused. It was the only way to get in and hear what Ethan was planning. Lena stood up, furious. "So that's it? You lied, sneaked in, and made me look like a fool in front of everyone? I never meant to expose you, but you did. I needed information. And what did you find out?" Miles hesitated. Then he spoke. "Ethan is planning to sell Nexus through a merger with a fake company. The deal will be cleaned up on paper, and the real company will be dismantled from the inside. He's using my name on old contracts that haven't been deactivated yet." "Then why don't you report him?" "Because I don't have all the proof yet, and if I push too soon, he might come out looking like the victim." Lena paced back and forth. You're someone I don't even know, Miles." And I thought, her voice cracked, "I thought I could trust you." "You can I? I saw you at that event. You were someone else. You looked at those people like you belonged in their world, and then you come back here to my couch, to my food, and pretend you're still the guy from the alley." "I'm not pretending. I'm both the man who messed up and the man trying to make things right." Lena took a deep breath. "I need to think." She walked into her room and shut the door. Miles stood there in the dark, still holding the phone. The next morning, Lena woke up with her mind in turmoil. She got up, made coffee, but didn't call Miles. He was already up, dressed, ready to leave. "I'll be gone for a few days," he said, standing at the door. "Running away again? I'm finishing what I started. Alone? For now, yes. What if I'm not here when you get back?" Miles gave a sad smile. "It would still be worth it." He walked out, and for the first time, Lena felt that maybe this was the end. Across town, Miles quietly entered a small office. He met an old contact, someone who owed him favors and didn't ask many questions. "I need access to Nexus's digital files, old backups, legal department, transaction records, contracts signed in the last 6 months. What are you planning to do? Make Ethan trip over his own plan?" As he spoke, Miles felt the weight of everything he had been through. This wasn't about the company anymore. It was about truth, about justice, and most of all, about facing Lena without more half-truths. 2 days later, Lena received an envelope at home, no sender. Inside was her phone, now with a new folder saved in the gallery, Nexus Truth. She opened the files, spreadsheets, recordings, copies of emails, everything. Along with it, a simple typed note. "I couldn't stay, but I never really left, MM." Lena pressed the phone to her chest, and for the first time in days, she knew exactly what she had to do. It was Sunday. The coffee on the kitchen table had gone cold, but Lena hadn't taken a single sip. Her phone was in her hands, the folder from Miles still open. Every document she read made things clearer and more dangerous. Ethan was tearing Nexus apart from the inside, like an old toy. The records left no doubt, contracts signed in Miles's name, transactions to shell companies, massive asset transfers. And yet, it wasn't enough for a public scandal. Ethan was careful. He left calculated gaps, documents with digital signatures that seemed legitimate, and used frontmen to cover the real name. Lena knew this was just the tip of the iceberg, and now she was in too deep to pretend otherwise. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and typed a short message. "We need to talk. Today. Wherever you are." No immediate response. Time felt slower when silence was the only thing between her and the truth. Miles got the message while analyzing screenshots of an altered contract. He was in an old co-working space downtown, using a fake identity to access servers and store files in an encrypted system. When he saw Lena's message, he didn't think twice. He left immediately, without explaining anything to anyone. When he arrived, Lena was waiting at the building entrance. Her gaze was steady, but different. The anger was gone. What remained was resolve. "Come in," she simply said. Miles walked in silently. He wasn't a stranger to this narrow hallway anymore, but everything felt different now. He noticed Lena did too. Inside, she pointed to the couch. "Sit." He obeyed. "I saw everything, read the documents, watched the videos. You're right, Miles. Ethan is destroying the company. But you're trying to do this alone, and that's not going to work. It's dangerous. I know. I don't want to drag you into this any more than I already have. But you already did. And now I'm here. There's no turning back." Miles lowered his eyes. "So, what do you suggest?" Lena picked up a folder from the table. "Innovate called me yesterday. They offered me a temporary support position. They have contracts with several companies, including one that appears in your documents, one of the front companies receiving money from Nexus." Miles looked up, fully focused now. "You think you can get something from them?" "I can get inside. It won't be easy, but if I can access their internal system, I might find more direct evidence calls, transfers, authorizations under Ethan's name. Lena, this could put you in danger." "I've been in danger since the day I brought you home." Miles stepped closer. "You don't have to do this for me. I'm not doing it for you or for me. I'm doing it for justice, for truth, for everyone who's being deceived." They stood in silence for a few seconds. He reached out, touched her arm. "I don't know if I deserve all this." "Then don't try to deserve it, just make it worth it." In the days that followed, Lena started her new job at Innovate. The company was modern, with strict security systems and clear rules, but she knew how to move carefully. She acted like a quiet employee, helpful, smart, but behind those watchful eyes, she had a goal: to find the loose threads connecting Innovate to Ethan's schemes. Miles, meanwhile, intensified his work behind the scenes with the help of an old, trusted partner, Theo, a former director of digital security at Nexus. He set up a parallel data collection base. Information was flowing faster now. The plan was taking shape. "There's a meeting scheduled between Ethan and the Ghost Company's directors next week," Theo said, showing an intercepted email. "Where?" "At the Magnolia Hotel, private hall. Event name, Strategic Merger." Miles knew exactly what that meant. If that contract was signed, he would lose any chance of turning the situation around. The night before the meeting, Lena got her hands on something valuable. During a break, she accessed the company's system and found a hidden file containing recordings of meetings between Ethan and executives from the shell company's clear voices, distinct conversations, details about payments, agreements, and the use of Miles's documents. She saved everything onto a flash drive, hiding it deep inside her bag. Walking out of the building, her heart pounded in her chest. She felt like she was carrying dynamite. That night, she met Miles. "I got it," she said, handing him the flash drive. He took it carefully, as if holding gold. "You took a huge risk. Was it worth it? More than you can imagine." He plugged the flash drive into his computer. The screen displayed the audio files. Then Ethan's voice played. "Miles won't show up, and even if he does, the story's already been written. He ran, disappeared. The world forgot about him." Then another executive's voice. "The merger happens this week. After that, no one will ask about him again." Miles looked at Lena. "With this, we have everything." She took a deep breath. "And now?" He closed the laptop. "Now we stop hiding." On the day of the meeting, Miles put on the suit he hadn't worn since the accident, freshly shaved, hair neatly styled, a new Nexus ID badge in hand, reactivated thanks to a loophole he himself had created years ago. Lena was ready too. She would be wearing a hidden camera disguised as a shirt button. The plan was simple. He would enter as an investor. She, already scheduled to assist with meeting logistics, would blend in. When they met at the hotel entrance, the air was tense. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Let's end this." The hall was packed with important people. Ethan hadn't arrived yet. The directors from the shell companies were seated around a large oval table. Lena moved among them, handing out materials, connecting cables, adjusting the projector, acting as if everything was normal. When Ethan finally walked in, Silence filled the room, but it didn't last. "Gentlemen," he said, "today we take an important step forward, and for that, I have the pleasure of introducing a new partner, Mason Adler." Miles entered through the side door. The impact was instant. Eyes met. Someone whispered. One of the directors turned pale. Ethan froze. "This can't be." Miles walked calmly to the front of the room. "Good to see you again, Ethan. This is trespassing. You're impersonating someone else." "No, I'm reclaiming who I am, Miles Renard, founder of Nexus, and the victim of a fraud that starts with you." Ethan tried to stay composed, but the looks around the room had changed. Miles pointed to Lena. Everything was recorded, every meeting, every call, every misstep. Lena activated the live broadcast. Screens around the hall displayed the audio files, the voices, the proof. Some tried to leave, others froze in place. Ethan fought back. "This is fake, manipulated." But no one believed him. Miles pulled an envelope from his pocket. Court order freezing all assets linked to Nexus's shell companies, and Ethan, an arrest warrant signed this morning. Police officers entered from the side of the room. Ethan was handcuffed without a fight, but before being taken away, he looked at Miles. "You think you've won?" "Not me, the truth." That night, Lena and Miles sat on her apartment balcony. "Did you get what you wanted?" she asked. "Almost." He looked at her. "There's still one thing left." "What?" Miles leaned in slowly, taking her hand. "To win you back, not as a CEO, not as the guy from the alley, but as someone who finally understands what it means to trust." Lena smiled, squeezing his fingers. "Then start." And at that moment, the game finally changed. Ethan's exposure was a relief, but not a liberation. The media covered the scandal. Miles's name was back in the headlines, now as the CEO who returned from the shadows. Investors were divided. Half celebrated his comeback. The other half feared instability. But for Miles, none of that mattered more than the uncomfortable silence between him and Lena in the past few days. She avoided questions. He avoided answers. That night, they sat across from each other at the dinner table. Lena's plate remained untouched. "Do you still think you did the right thing?" she asked without lifting her eyes. Miles took a moment before answering. "I did what had to be done, even knowing that now everything revolves around you again." He sighed. "Do you think I enjoy this?" "I don't know what you enjoy anymore, Miles. I don't even know if I know you." That hurt more than he was willing to admit. "I'm the same man you found in that alley." "No, you're not. The man I found gave me food when he had nothing. The man sitting here hides things from me, calculates, acts like the world is a chessboard, because now it is. And where do I fit into this game?" He didn't answer. If there was an answer, it wasn't simple. The next day, Lena went to Nexus for the first time since the scandal. Miles had asked her to accompany him to a board meeting where he would present the company's restructuring plan. She stepped into the towering building, her eyes scanning everything. The receptionist recognized her and whispered something to the security guard. Lena pretended not to notice. In the elevator, Miles adjusted his tie. Lena watched him in the polished steel reflection. "Nervous?" she asked. "I've always been." She gave a faint smile, but the tension lingered. The meeting was brief. Miles presented his plans with confidence. He spoke of transparency, independent audits, revising contracts, and giving opportunities to young talent. Lena listened, but her mind was elsewhere. When they stepped out, she looked at him. "You're very good at this." "At what?" "Speaking well, convincing people." He understood what she was really saying. "You think I'm manipulating you?" "I think you've gotten used to controlling everything, Miles." Silent, as Lena walked away to pick up her phone from the front desk, he headed back to his office. On the way, a security guard discreetly stopped him. "Mr. Renard, a man was here last night. He left this with your name on it but didn't identify himself. It was a thin envelope, no return address." Miles opened it right there. Inside was just a single photo, Lena entering a building. A handwritten note read, "How far is she with you?" His stomach twisted. That night, he didn't come home. Lena spent hours staring at her phone, the door, the clock. Anxiety returned like an old enemy. When he finally arrived, it was past 2 in the morning. His eyes were red, his face exhausted. "Where were you?" "I needed to think." "About what?" "Everything about how all of this is affecting you." "And you think disappearing helps?" He sat on the couch. "Someone sent me a threat, a photo of you." Her eyes widened. "What?" "They're trying to plant doubt, make me suspicious of you." "And did it work?" "No, but it made me realize how exposed we are." Lena sat beside him. closer than she intended. "I'm not going anywhere, Miles, unless you push me away." "I would never do that." "Then tell me everything, no more secrets." He hesitated. Then, as if lifting a weight off his shoulders, he spoke. "I have a false identity. Mason Adler was a name I created years ago during a business trip to Dubai to close deals with investors who didn't trust young CEOs. I used that name to move around, sign documents, even open accounts. You have accounts that aren't in your name?" I had, but everything was legalized when I came back. Still, the name remained like a shadow, and now someone is using it against me. Someone from inside, maybe. Lena stood up. "You need to report this. Without proof, I can't. If I admit there was a false identity linked to me, they'll use it to ruin my credibility. Then find proof before they use it against you." He nodded. 2 days later, Lena received an anonymous envelope at the cafe where she used to work before taking freelance jobs at Innovate. Inside was a copy of a stock transfer document under the name Mason Adler. Miles's name was nowhere to be found, and a note, "Do you still believe you know him?" She went to Nexus that afternoon. She didn't call ahead. She waited for him to finish his last meeting and intercepted him in the parking lot. "Is this yours?" She handed him the envelope. Miles recognized it instantly. "Who gave you this?" "It got to me the same way it got to you, Miles. This is part of what I told you. Someone is trying to break the trust between us. And is it working? Only if you let it." She crossed her arms. "But why didn't you ever tell me about this past? About this other name?" "Because it was a mistake. I had buried a mistake I thought would never come back. You can't expect me to believe everything without questioning it, Miles. You disappeared for months, lied about who you were, snuck into parties with fake badges, and now there are documents with names I've never even heard before. I have the right to doubt you." He lowered his head. "You're right. So, do we keep going or do we stop here?" Miles stepped closer, hesitant. "I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want you by my side, without knowing where you stand." "Then show me everything tonight." That night, Miles took Lena to a small warehouse in the suburbs. There, he kept a personal archive of everything he had collected over the years, folders with old contracts, handwritten notes, recordings, even receipts for transactions that were never officially recorded. "This is the part of my life I've been hiding, not because I wanted to deceive you, but because I was ashamed of it." Lena scanned the papers. "All of this is yours?" "Yes, a part of my life no one knows about, just me. And now you." She looked at him for a moment. All the fear disappeared. "You're not perfect, but at least now you're real." Miles smiled, relieved. "This is the closest to the truth I can get." "Then start here. From now on, no more secrets. Promise." "I promise." Lena stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Without hesitation, he closed his eyes, and finally, he knew he didn't have to run anymore. But on the other side of the city, in a dimly lit office, a man watched everything unfold on a screen. "They're together again," he said to no one in particular. The assistant behind him kept his eyes down. "Should I move forward with the plan?" "Yes, but now more carefully. They're stronger, and that makes everything more dangerous." The man lit a cigarette, leaned back in his chair, and smiled. "But don't worry, even the strongest alliances have invisible cracks." Lena woke up to a different kind of silence that morning. The apartment felt bigger, emptier. The kettle was still in its usual spot, but there was no scent of fresh coffee, no sound of Miles's footsteps coming from the small guest room. Instinctively, she got up and went there. The bed was made, the closet door was open, and on the pillow, an envelope with her name. She picked it up with trembling hands, sat on the edge of the bed, and read, "Lena, by the time you open this letter, I'll be gone, not because I want to run from you, but because I know that staying is more dangerous than leaving. I know you'll say I should have let you choose, that I should have trusted you, and you'd be right. But this time, the choice is mine, and I choose to protect you. There is no place in the world where I am that you are not with me in thought. Not a single day goes by that I don't feel grateful for meeting you in that alley. You gave me more than shelter, you gave me direction. But now, I have to fix something that still holds me back. I need to go back to where it all began, and only then, if it's still possible, I'll return to where I feel whole by your side. Miles." Lena didn't cry, but she also couldn't move for a long time. His absence was physical, yet so emotional that it seemed to weigh on every wall of the apartment. In the days that followed, she kept herself busy with work. Innovate called her for a new position, not temporary this time, but permanent. She accepted, not out of necessity, but to fill the space Miles had left behind. She avoided the news, but his name still appeared from time to time. Billionaire businessman resurfaces. Miles Renard breaks his silence. Nexus enters a new phase, bringing its CEO back to the market. She didn't read the articles, didn't click on the videos. She didn't want to see that side of him. The Miles who wore suits, spoke to reporters, and shook hands in boardrooms wasn't the one she missed. She missed the Miles who laughed at his own cooking mistakes, the one who stayed up late just to rearrange her books by theme instead of by author. And even with time, that Miles never really left. He was everywhere. One afternoon after work, Lena decided to take a walk. The sky was overcast. The air was cold. She hadn't brought an umbrella. She had no real destination. She passed familiar streets. Others she had avoided. Until, without meaning to, her steps took her back to the same alley where it all began. There it was, the spot where she had fallen, dropped her lunch, and met a man who would change her life forever. She smiled to herself, not just because of the memory, but because, for the first time, she felt like she could move forward, even without him there. But the universe, apparently, wasn't done with him yet. On the other side of the city, Miles sat inside a car, watching his former company through the window. The Nexus building was now a symbol of rebuilding. He had left it in the hands of a new board with a trusted team, determined to do things the right way. "Are you sure about this?" Theo asked, sitting beside him in the back seat. "Yes, I've closed this chapter," Miles smiled. "And now I need to find a coffee shop." The following week, Lena received an unexpected email. "Dear Lena, we would like to invite you to participate in an internal selection process at our partner company, Lumora Technologies. Your experience and profile have been recommended. The interview will be in person." She hesitated. She had never heard of Lumora, but the invitation seemed legitimate. The address was in a rural area where many startups were setting up small operational offices. On Saturday, she decided to go. She took a bus, then a rideshare, and finally arrived at the location, a small road lined with trees, with simple signs pointing to a newly opened coffee shop, Cafe Milo. She found it odd. She checked the address again. This was the place. She walked in, confused. There was no reception, just a smiling young woman behind the counter. "Lena?" "Yes." "Please, follow me." She was led to the back of the cafe. A door opened. Inside, sunlight streamed through the windows, and one person was waiting. Miles. No suit, no tie. He wore jeans, his sleeves rolled up, and that familiar smile she would recognize anywhere. Lena froze. "What is this? An apology? You set all this up?" "Not alone. The cafe is real, and so is the job offer. But the idea was to see you again. I just didn't want to show up at your door like a ghost." She crossed her arms. "And why now?" "Because now I've settled everything I needed to. And because I still love you, even if I don't know if you'll forgive me." Lena took a deep breath. "You left me without saying if you'd be back, without letting me know if you were okay. That doesn't get fixed with a mysterious invitation." "I know, but maybe it can start with a coffee." She laughed, incredulous. "You never change. I don't want to, not if it means losing what brought me here." Silence. "I invested here," he continued, "used a different name, wanted to build something simple, away from the chaos. I thought maybe you'd like the idea." She studied him. "So, you want me to work for you?" "I want you to decide what you want. If you want to walk away now, that's fine. But if you want to try, we can start over, not as CEO and the girl from the alley, but as Lena and Miles, equals." She looked around, the smell of coffee, the soft light, her heart racing. "And if I say yes?" "I'll hand you an apron. And if I say no, you get a free coffee and leave with your dignity intact." Lena walked slowly toward him, stopping just inches away. "Do you have sugar? We do even plant-based milk." "Then what's today's special, boss?" Miles smiled. "The house specialty. New beginnings." She took the apron he offered, put it on slowly, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As they prepared the first coffee of the day together, a woman on the other side of the world read an email with interest. Target identified. The CEO is no longer active in the company's board, minimal market influence, but emotionally vulnerable. She typed just 2 words in response. "Keep watching." The game wasn't over. But Lena and Miles were finally ready to play together. The Cafe Milo sign was starting to gain fame in the region. Locals loved the warm atmosphere, the handcrafted coffee, and, most of all, the friendly couple who seemed straight out of a romantic comedy. Lena felt good there for the first time in a long time. She worked without burden, without fear, without the exhaustion of constantly running. And Miles seemed lighter too, away from Nexus's glass-walled offices, the newspapers, and suffocating contracts. But that peace wouldn't last. A week after their reunion, the calm began to crack. It started with a phone call. "Lena, this is Tara from Innovate. Do you have a moment?" "Of course. Everything okay?" "It's about the Nexus case. You're still on the list of summoned witnesses." "What?" "Ethan's defense has filed a new strategy. They're trying to accuse Miles of corporate fraud and identity misrepresentation. You've been listed as a key figure from the time he was in hiding." Lena pressed a hand to her forehead. "But he was protecting himself. I know what he did, I helped." "Yes, but his defense team hasn't officially responded yet, and the prosecution wants to determine if you were used, manipulated, or complicit." Lena swallowed hard. "And when is this happening?" "Preliminary hearing next week." That night, as she and Miles were closing the cafe's register, she decided to speak up. "Did you know Ethan was still trying to bring you down?" Miles didn't seem surprised. "I figured he'd try something. He's accusing you of fraud, and they called me as a witness." Miles dropped the coins on the counter. "Lena, I never wanted to drag you into this. I know, but now I'm in it, and I want to know, are you going to fight or run away again?" He looked at her. There was something different in his eyes, not fear, not doubt, but something that mixed exhaustion with determination. "I'm going to face it. Then start by telling the truth." "Which part?" "All of it." Miles sat down, took a deep breath, and began. "When I came back from Ethan's exposure, I thought staying away was enough. But as soon as the press found out I was alive, everything reignited. Investors pressured me, the board summoned me. I tried to refuse, but I realized that Nexus was still my responsibility." "So you came back as an interim?" "But I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to settle the pending contracts, hand over the company to trustworthy hands, and leave for good." "And you didn't tell me because?" "I knew you'd think I was doing it all over again, disappearing, controlling everything." Lena watched him in silence. "And do you still think you can live between two worlds?" "I just want one of them to be with you." The hearing came quickly. The courtroom was packed, even though it was just a preliminary session. Lena sat in the row reserved for witnesses, her hands clasped in her lap. Miles entered with his lawyer beside him. He wore a dark suit, his hair neatly combed, but his gaze was still the same. On the other side, Ethan looked thinner, but no less venomous. The judge opened the session. The prosecution laid out its arguments. Miles had used a false name, moved around in disguise, attended private events, and now he had to explain whether all of it was part of a dirty scheme or an act of survival. Then Lena was called. She walked to the stand with firm steps. The judge looked at her. "Miss Lena, what can you tell us about the time Mr. Miles was absent from the public eye?" She took a deep breath. "That he was trying to save his own life, and later, the company he built." "Did you know he was using a false identity?" "I found out later, but I understood why. He was betrayed, hunted, discredited, and even so, he chose to fix things, not to disappear, not to seek revenge." Ethan's lawyer stood up. "And at any point, did he coerce you, manipulate your decisions, convince you to help him in illegal acts?" "No. Everything I did was because I believed in him." "Do you still believe in him today?" Lena looked at Miles. He was watching her, as if that answer was more important than the verdict. "Yes, I do." By the end of the hearing, the judge hadn't ruled yet, but the tone was clear. Miles had acted outside formalities, but not outside justice. The evidence showed intent to protect, not to deceive. Outside the courtroom, journalists surrounded Lena. "Are you with him now? Is he really the man who disappeared? What is it like to be with someone with two identities?" She took a deep breath, smiled, and answered, "He has two names, but only one heart, and that is what matters." A few meters away, Miles heard her, and at that moment, he knew there was still hope for everything. The morning of the trial was gray. It wasn't raining, but the sky seemed to hold back tears, as if hesitating before a farewell. Miles was ready, or at least trying to appear so. He wore the same suit he had worn when he first took over Nexus, the one that always felt like a shield, Today, however, it weighed like old armor. Lena wasn't with him. Since the preliminary hearing, they had spoken little, and the night before, she had only said, "If you need me, you know where to find me." But now, she wasn't on the witness bench, she wasn't in the waiting room, and she hadn't answered the 2 calls he made before leaving home. Even so, Miles entered the courtroom with his head held high. On the other side of the room, Ethan looked confident. He had a new team of lawyers, hired at the last minute. He smiled slightly, like someone who still believed he had one last card to play. The judge started the session right on time. The first few hours were technical debates over legal terms, contractual responsibilities, and the thin line between caution and omission. Miles listened in silence. He didn't argue, he didn't gesture, he just waited. When he was called, he walked to the center of the room, stopped in front of the microphone, and spoke calmly. "During the time I was absent, my priority was to protect what was left of my company," he said. "And yes, I used a false name, entered events in disguise, acted outside the protocol, but every step I took was to prevent a bigger crime." The judge observed him closely. "Do you acknowledge that you violated corporate and legal regulations?" "I acknowledge that, but I asked the court to consider the context, the real risk, and the evidence that not only clarifies my intent, but also exposes the gravity of what was happening behind the scenes." The prosecution did not object. Ethan's defense tried to shift the focus, but the audio recordings, videos, and documents presented during the trial phase were undeniable. After a brief recess, the judge returned to deliver the verdict. The court acknowledges that Mr. Miles Renard acted outside legal parameters at certain moments, but his actions were driven by the need to protect both himself and his company. Considering the evidence presented, this court declares him not guilty of fraud and intentional identity manipulation. The courtroom murmured. For the first time, Ethan lost his smile. The judge continued, "However, it is recommended that Mr. Renard remain away from executive duties at Nexus for an indefinite period to ensure the company's institutional rebuilding on neutral grounds." Miles nodded. This was not a loss in a way. It was freedom. As he left the courtroom, reporters swarmed him, but Miles didn't speak. He was only looking for one face, Lena, but she wasn't there. 2 days passed. Miles couldn't focus on anything. The cafe remained closed. Every morning he returned there, as if that would somehow make her appear. On the 3rd morning, he found the counter clean, the plants watered, and one thing different, a letter placed on the coffee machine. He recognized the handwriting instantly. "Miles, first of all, congratulations. You did what many would have given up on, but I needed some time because watching you in that courtroom was hard, seeing the weight you still carry, seeing the world pulling you back in, even when all you want is to breathe. I love you, but I love myself too. And right now, I need to remember who I am without you around. Because for a long time, my life was about surviving, and now that I've learned to live, I want to do it for me. This isn't goodbye, but it is a pause. Sometimes a reunion is only beautiful because of the space in between. With love, Lena." Miles stood still for a long time. Then he made himself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and looked at the small garden. They had started together. He didn't cry, but he let the silence fill every corner of what she had left behind. Months passed. Miles never returned to Nexus. Instead, he invested in small businesses, cafes, social projects focused on education. He chose a quieter, simpler life, but never a lonely one. Lena changed too. She opened a small bookstore in a quiet neighborhood, creating a cozy space for community reading. She worked less, smiled more, she was whole. They hadn't seen each other in all that time, but they thought about each other often. Then, on a spring morning, a letter arrived at Lena's shop. It was signed with only a single letter M, and it said, "I found a town where the trees bloom all year long, where the coffee never gets cold, and where there's an empty chair beside mine. If you ever want to come back, I'll be here." Lena read the letter with a soft smile on her lips, and for the first time in a long while, she felt no rush. She knew the reunion would come, but only when they were both ready to stay. The day began with a warm breeze sweeping across the sidewalks of the small town where Miles had settled. There was no sign of rain, but the sky was filled with light clouds, gently veiling the sun. It was the kind of morning that called for quiet moments, fresh coffee, and memories. The cafe he had built with so much care was now known as a place of peace. Milo Cafe wasn't just a name, it was the feeling everyone had when they walked through the door. But that day, Miles woke up restless. He didn't know why, he just felt it, like something was about to happen. He set the tables, checked the coffee beans, cleaned the espresso machine, then turned on the lights on the outdoor patio and placed a fresh flower in the window vase. And he waited. Lena reached the end of the road with her heart racing. The town was smaller than she remembered, or maybe it was just the first time she was seeing it with calm eyes. The place smelled of history and sounded like tranquility. The streets were narrow, the houses low, their windows open, as if life breathed differently there. She carried little baggage, a backpack, a notebook, and a letter in her pocket, the letter Miles had sent months ago. She hadn't replied, but she had kept it, read it over and over again. And that morning, she decided it was time to go, not out of longing, but out of certainty. The wooden sign with hand-drawn letters made her smile. Milo Cafe. It was an invitation. She pushed the door open slowly. The little bell rang. Miles appeared behind the counter. Their eyes met, and for a few seconds, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, as if confirming that time, no matter how cruel, hadn't erased what truly mattered. So he finally said, "You came. Took me too long?" "No, right on time." She walked to the counter. "You really did it, a coffee shop in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes we don't need much, just a place to call home. And did you find it?" "Not yet, but I'm close." He gestured to the chair on the other side of the counter. She sat down. "What's good today?" "The house coffee is still strong, and the neighbor makes fresh cheese bread." "Cheese bread?" She smiled. "You sure know how to win me over. I learned from the best teacher." Silence. She lowered her gaze for a moment. "I thought you wouldn't write to me. I thought so too. But you did. Because writing was the only way not to forget you, without seeming desperate." Lena laughed. "You were never desperate. Only on the inside." They sat on the porch, each with a cup of coffee. The garden was in bloom. Leaves danced in the breeze. There was no rush, no expectations, just the perfect pause between the end of one story and the beginning of another. "The bookstore you opened is beautiful," he said. "I saw some pictures. Looks like it's more than just a shop, it's a place where people feel at home." That was the idea, a space where people could breathe freely. "And did you succeed?" "I'm still trying, as always." She looked at him. "You've changed, Miles. For the better? For the truth." He nodded. "And you?" "I stopped running, stopped hiding. But I had to step away to understand who I was without you." "And did you?" "Yes. But now I also know who I am with you around." Miles set his cup down. "I don't know if I still have the right to ask for anything, but you're going to ask. If I asked you to stay, just for a few days, would you consider it?" She didn't answer right away. Then she smiled. "I packed enough clothes for a week. I can get you an apron. I already feel at home." In the days that followed, Lena helped at the register, the tables, and with customers. She reorganized the books on the small cafe shelf and created a section called Reading with Coffee, a selection of light, inspiring books. Miles watched it all, with quiet admiration. It wasn't like before they no longer had to prove themselves or save each other, just walk side by side. One of the regulars, an older man with a white beard and a worn-out cap, commented, "You two have something special, like pieces of the same puzzle." Lena smiled. "Maybe we are." Miles stayed quiet, but that night, as they closed the register, he said, "I've been thinking about something." "What?" "How sometimes life takes us in circles, just to bring us back where we were always meant to be." "Like a cafe called Milo." "Exactly." Lena looked into his eyes. "Are you still afraid?" "Of what?" "Of getting lost again." "No, because now I know if I ever get lost, you'll find me again." She reached across the counter and took his hand. "Always." One quiet afternoon, with sunlight streaming through the cafe windows, Miles stood by the counter, holding a small box. Lena, busy writing in a notebook, looked up. "What is it?" "Close your eyes, Miles. Just trust me." She closed her eyes. He stepped closer, and when she opened them, she saw a small silver ring with a simple stone. "This is an invitation, not for a wedding just yet, but to build something together, one day at a time." Lena was silent for a moment, then she picked up the ring and slid it onto her finger. "It's light, as it should be." She smiled. "So, what's today's special, fiancé?" Miles laughed. "The same as always, new beginnings." And in that place, lost on the map but found by the heart, they started a new chapter, not with grand promises, but with honesty and warm coffee. That year, winter arrived gently. It wasn't the kind of cold that stung, but just enough to make people wear thick coats and seek warmth indoors. For customers at Milo Cafe, that meant spending more time there, curled up in armchairs near the bookshelves, holding their cups with both hands, as if the warmth of the coffee could also warm their souls. Miles and Lena stood behind the counter, like so many mornings before, but something felt different. The cafe was busier than usual, and the staff, now a team of 3 full-time employees, moved around with an energy that seemed to be hiding something. "What's going on here today?" Lena asked, watching the subtle rush. "Oh, nothing special, Luca," one of the baristas answered, trying not to smile. "Luca, you don't know how to lie." Miles walked out of the kitchen, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Lena frowned. "Is this also nothing special? You'll see." He walked to the cafe door, which was open because of the mild weather, and placed the bouquet on a table on the porch. Then he held out his hand to Lena. "Come with me, Miles, just for 5 minutes." She followed him without resisting. As soon as she stepped outside, she saw something that took her breath away for a moment. In the garden, now decorated with delicate banners and lights hanging from the branches, stood her friends, neighbors, employees, and even loyal customers of the cafe, all smiling, waiting. "What is this?" Miles looked at her, his eyes shining. "It's our day." "Our what?" Right there, on the still damp morning grass, he got down on one knee. "Lena, you were the most unexpected and perfect thing that ever happened to me. You showed up when I was nothing but ruins and had the courage to rebuild me with patience. I don't want to live without you anymore. I can't even imagine days where you're not by my side, arguing with me because I forgot to put sugar in your coffee." She laughed, tears welling in her eyes. "So, I ask you, with everything I have and everything I am, will you marry me?" She covered her mouth with her hand. "Are you serious? More than anything I've ever done in my life." "And when is the wedding?" "Right now." Lena was speechless. Miles stood up and took her hands. "I know this is unexpected, but everything is ready, simple. Just like us. There's only one thing missing." "What?" "Your answer." She looked around the lights, the familiar faces, the garden they had nurtured together. Then she looked back at him. "I do." The guests applauded. Luca started playing a soft tune on his guitar. Nora, the neighbor, brought out a carrot cake with chocolate frosting, their favorite, as she always said. The ceremony was quick. A local justice of the peace officiated with a charming lightheartedness. Miles and Lena exchanged vows, looking into each other's eyes as if nothing else in the world existed. "I promise to remind you who you are, even when you forget," she said. "And I promise to protect you, even if the world crumbles again," he replied. The kiss came right after, unhurried, as if every chapter of their story, filled with both pain and beauty, had finally found its perfect ending. That afternoon, the cafe was open to everyone. The tables were pushed aside, turning the space into an improvised dance floor. The children ran around with napkins tied like capes, while the adults toasted with cups of coffee, topped with cream and chocolate. Lena watched it all with teary eyes, sitting by the window. Miles sat beside her, holding a cup in his hand. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That for a long time, I thought there were only 2 choices: surviving or giving up. And now, here I am, living. You always knew how to live. You just needed space." She rested her head on his shoulder. "And are you happy? More than I deserve." "You do deserve it, Miles, because you chose to change, you chose to love, and, more than anything, you chose to stay." At the end of the day, when everyone had gone home, Lena and Miles sat at the counter again. The cafe was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp in the corner. "You know what I was thinking?" she said, stirring her spoon in her cup. "What? Maybe it's time to change the cafe's name." "Change it?" "Not entirely, just a little adjustment." She got up, grabbed a sheet of paper, and wrote with a blue pen, "Cafe and Soul." "What do you think?" Miles smiled. "It's exactly what we are." She placed the paper on the counter and said, "Tomorrow, we change the sign. Tomorrow is a great day to start over." A few weeks later, the cafe had its new name. Cafe and Soul became a small tourist attraction, drawing visitors who wanted to see the place where the missing CEO restarted his life with an ordinary woman who had the heart of a giant. But inside, they weren't a legend, they were just life. Miles made the coffee, Lena managed the books, and they loved each other effortlessly. like two people who understood that the real luxury in life is having someone to share the silence with. What did you think of Lena and Miles's story? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story?